Tyrant Mass Flyer number 1, to you above. To you above, hello and greetings from the pit. I address you as refuse does the one who cast it away. You created me, and I am no one's responsibility but yours, and yet, you exist inside of a system that produce this relationship. Think on this. To you above, Ludra's maintenance of a system that reproduces this border is not a kindness, it is the same violence that has always been done to us. To you above, by stating which sky is ours to transit and yours to guard, you create and reproduce the conditions that cast us down and began this struggle in the first place. To you above, ask yourselves not why we throw ourselves against the guns of the crown and border, ask yourselves what you have done to make this martyr act necessary. To the crown, we haven't forgotten what you did, God above, and us too, will be your judge. So to conclude this letter, but not close this book, we, the ungrateful, spit on the hand that feeds us because it is not our own hand, but the hand that stole our food from us and returned with crumbs. We the ungratefuls want the wealth of our own world, which we have extracted by our own hands. We the ungratefuls ask you above, are we not free people too, to others just as ungrateful as we? It is time we struggle for a new era. Tyrant, for a new era. The revolution began in 4601 U, at the end of a week-long work stoppage in a single mine, which prompted a general strike throughout Sanjak underground and sympathetic direct action above ground on Ludra's world. It was not a planned action, but a sudden accumulation of many factors, of people hitting their limit, the drift of galactic politics under the new Third Committee, and the able preparation of militant ungrateful cells prepared to catalyze the right situation. The breaking point came during a work stoppage protest in Lower Sanjak, at the end of a long week of miners refusing to work and blocking access shafts to a rich vein. Ludran security forces were brought in to break up the strike and escort work crews of flash clones past the picket. To break the strike, Ludran security forces simply opened fire, massacring the mine workers as they sat in their makeshift camp. Sanjak underground burst into widespread protest, organized around a series of militant ungrateful cells led by a longtime agitator, a Sanjak facsimile pamphleteer writing under the name Tyrant. Sanjak underground roiled with protest, whole streets barricaded by the now unified mix of ungratefuls, Sanjak citizens, and facsimiles, whose people, too, had been killed in the massacre. Ludran security attempted to regain control by engaging the barricades directly with live ammunition. They were met with return fire. Above ground, a 1-2 punch hit Ludra's world. The interest war had just concluded with the embarrassing defeat of the Buck, claiming the lives of many of House Ludra's best soldiers and its baron. As the world was mourning this loss, an above-ground ungrateful cell attacked and held an island resort, declaring it to be under the control of Free Sanjak. House Ludra, leaderless, struggled to respond. Ludran security forces underground were overwhelmed, their weapons and armor captured by the ungratefuls, their logistics and information networks exposed for months until above-ground command shut them down. By the time they did, it was too late. The ungratefuls had made contact with sympathetic off-world groups, various horror cells among them, and spread their story. The consequences were immediate. Horus pattern groups were fabricated using Ludran security printers and facilities, and the Cobalt code, earlier used on Bo to great effect, was injected into civilian mining rigs, transforming them into weapons without the use of a printer. In response, free companies from Kyradan were sent to Ludra's world to evacuate the noble population and suppress the rebellion. Diplomats on all sides opened channels to handle the crisis. The revolution had begun. Tyrant Mass Flyer number 7, to you above. To you above, Ludra security will show you the weapons and drugs they recover from our dead at the border. They will say, look, we had to do this, because they bring pistols and rifles and tools of violence into our paradise above. They bring drugs also, and poison our children. It is correct and for your safety that we shoot these border crossers. Think on these questions whenever you see these stories on the news. Why do these Sanjak bring guns above and not use them to defend themselves? Why do these Sanjak bring drugs above instead of keeping them for themselves? Why would Ludra want us to see this? Why would these poor dead Sanjak do this? Here is why: because you want these guns, because you want these drugs, because Ludra wants you to fear us and not examine your own complicity in our immiseration, because dying to bring you guns and drugs is better than living down here. To you above, question why there needs to be a border, question what it does to us and what it does to you, question who is doing violence to whom. Is it the poor dead boys who try to bring you the things you want, or is it the border keepers who draw lines over our land, build their walls, deny us jobs, deny us trade, and then shoot our boys who try to cross that line. To you above, what does the border do for you but demand blood to satisfy its existence? What does the border do for you but make you afraid? To you above, the border is coming for you too. Tyrant, for a new era. Reinforcements arrived quickly. First was Karakin Trunk Security, a newly formed free company outfitted by their investors with early GMS Everest chassis. The KTS introduced themselves to Ludra's world violently, hard landing on and around a number of resort islands left vacant or minimally occupied during the initial evacuation scramble at the outbreak of the revolution. On paper, their task was simple: isolate the above-ground ungrateful revolutionary groups, and establish and hold evacuation corridors for the resident and vacationing nobility. The situation that KTS stepped into was more complex, however. House Ludra's security forces were scattered across hundreds of resort islands, broken into small embattled groups surrounded by Sanjak revolutionaries. Ludra's world had been purpose-built by Commencer. Each landmass had been shaped into a unique island, themed to various eras of Karakin history and branded popular media franchises, utterly rewriting the geologic superstratum of the world into a fantasy playground for the nobles who wanted to vacation there, meaning, each island had to be approached with fresh tactics, even if KTS's overall strategy remained the same. KTS's commanders began an aggressive campaign, launching company-strength attacks against neighboring islands, laying into them at full strength regardless of ungrateful presence. Their strategy was simple: a cold plan of blitz attacks meant to strike fear into the Sanjak peoples and reinforce Karakin dominion through strength. Peace negotiations were never on the table for Karakin Trunk, a dictate from House Ludra, which hoped to end the revolution before it grew out of hand. KTS's progress in the early days was fast, a consequence of good planning on the part of KTS's commanders, veterans of the interest war who had spent time studying and adopting the armory's rapid mech assault tactics, and the ruthlessness of their tactics. Karakin Trunk's conversion rate, that is, the number of hostages rescued or remains recovered versus hostages held, was an acceptable 0.7 to 1, due to the general distaste for House Ludra among the Kairati nobility and in the baronies at large. KTS's troops performed well, however. In the face of stiff guerrilla resistance, they could not convert islands fast enough. Tyrannoklev's Ungratefuls held core supply islands where Ludran security forces had, prior to the revolution, significant presence. With a steady stream of House Ludra's captured arms and armor and numbers on their side, there proved simply too many Ungratefuls for KTS to manage. The presence of unique chassis created by Horus Liturgicode also proved far too unconventional for KTS to handle. Heavy and sometimes questionable aid from illegal or black site Omni-Net uplinks poured into the area, unable to be stifled through official union channels. Though occasionally unstable or ineffective, the ability of the Ungratefuls to create kobolds by injecting nothing but raw code into most mining and heavy industry mechs gave them an insurmountable advantage as the conflict dragged on. The conflict deepened. The Buck, leery of committing too many forces to Ludra's world on account of ongoing union-mediated negotiations between the baronies and Harrison Armory, hired more free companies to relieve the battered Karakin Trunk security. House Ludra was, at this point, a non-entity, having utterly failed to hold its own ground. Ludra's world was theirs in name only. Soon enough, ships from the Ma Free Company, Preti Corp, burned towards Ludra's world from nearby Kairatin, and the House of Stone issued a blanket embargo and blockade of Ludra's world. The walls, communication, supply, and information, went up, isolating the once paradisiacal moon behind a total spectrum embargo. The revolution ended with the conclusion of the Baronic Armory peace negotiations. Union's Third Committee was able to mediate a ceasefire between Sanjak and the baronies' more conservative houses that ensured a complete withdrawal of House Ludra's forces, recognition of the revolutionaries' demands for independence, and repatriation of many of House Ludra's material goods. The Ungratefuls renamed Ludra's world the Free Sanjak Commune and assumed administration. In the current day, the embargo continues, enforced viciously by the House of Stone. The Ungratefuls hold sway over most of the world, governing with continuing, though tenuous, popular support, and making the best of the limited resources available to them. Life is anything but quiet. Shortages of food, medicine, and supplies have caused untold suffering and instability in the cities on the surface, with the powerful house companies of the House of Stone shooting down blockade runners on sight. Union treads with the lightest touch possible, and negotiations have stalled in core space, where communications and real-time transit of ambassadors have taken decades in subjective time. The Baronic Council and the Prime Baron, with their focus on the Dawn Line shore, seem unwilling to put any serious pressure on the situation for danger of causing the conflict to boil over into hagiographic fervor that could splinter the baronies into a greater internal conflict. The House of Stone, with its military might, keeps a tight grip on the situation. On Kyratan, the civilian population is forbidden from even observing the moon through telescopes for the duration of the revolution. When Ludra's world was in Kyrati sky, the planet's officials ordered all cities to implement nightfall curfews. Unofficial channels are, of course, hard at work. The House of Sand runs an aggressive anti-Sanjak propaganda campaign and pulls its strings in the council, suppressing any news coming off the planet and buying off ignoble and noble functionaries alike with luxuries, bribes, and access. In Union space, the UIB clandestinely runs funding, support, and supplies to groups that will help leverage the situation and break the impasse. Numerous other sympathetic groups, including the Houses of Water and Dust and many individual Horus cells, run operations, sending in relief and slipping through holes in the blockade. The revolution might have finished on the surface, but up and beyond the sky, the work has only just begun. Tyrannocle mass flyer number, unknown, and when it is all done. Today it is quite grey on free Sanjak. There is a rain in the mountains, which Tyrannocle may be able to see from their home. You all would like if I gave myself a gender or a location for your spies and killers to hunt me by, correct? Haha, foiled again. The mist is quite fine, and the sun will not burn it away. It is like us, this mist, weak alone, but when that terrible eye is so far away, and we are together, we have hope. Yes, for the first time in a long time, we have hope. Sanjak, she is not free just yet, not from you or Union, who is a larger and more complex beast than you, because they try to do good, but what good is doing good when doing good by all means the poorest must suffer? But she has wrapped her fists in good rags and walloped you above a bloody nose and sent your fighters and killers running. Her people are not yet free, but we can now see the rain on the mountains when before we could only see the dark of the mines. Tyrannocle sighs and looks up from their little desk. You know what, I think I will have a smoke. Come and walk with me among the people and let us see our new world. Up here we don't spoil, there are children in the streets but they are laughing, and having their hair tended to, and learning from our comrades the necessaries, maths and words to be sure, but also how to paint, and how to sing. Imagine, seeing one of our children painting, or singing, or laughing as they play. We should all aspire to be so unproductive, and to make you above so mad. The homes you left empty for real estate speculators and investors and developers are filled now, and mothers cook good meals in them, their walls echo with laughter and song. The mines are closed, we make for use, and have no use for them. This is the final blow we have dealt you, lords and kings and barons. We broke your machines and your mines and threw off your fetters and then went for a walk, had a coffee, shared a cigarette with a friend, and then went for a nap, and the world didn't end. Now I am going to go and watch the rain for a little while. Some thanks, from the new era, to the rebel fighters and those who kept them fed and hidden. Our thanks, to the propagandists and the agitators. Our thanks, to every child. Our thanks, to every space captain who ran the blockade. Our thanks, to every laborer and slave. You have our promise, one day, the new era will come for you too. Tyrannocle, who may have died or may have lived or may never have lived or may live forever, if you know, you know. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell button. If you really want to support my channel, you could visit my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.